What up? What up? What up, everybody? Episode 5, Bench Warmers here. Your boy Jono sitting in with my man, published author, Bulls fan, and Jordan enthusiast, my man Lo. Lo, say what up
Y'all
to the people.
know what's going on, Bench Warmerz family. You know what I'm saying? It is cold out here in these Florida streets. Hence why we got our hoodies on. Anything below 65. It is a blizzard out in Florida, but hopefully you guys are staying safe and you are doing good in these COVID streets. Jono, what's good, my brother? How's everything, man?
Man, I am freezing. I woke up this morning, 37 degrees. Born and raised in New York, spent a couple years in New Hampshire. So I should be, used to the cold, but man, it is freezing.
You a Florida boy, bro. You ain't a New Yorker no more, son.
If you
move from
almost,
New York to
almost.
Florida, and after a year, you got Florida blood, bro. You got Florida blood,
that.
bro.
Look, I'd much rather be warm than cold right now. So, that's all good, man. But NBA season is fast approaching. Training camp has kicked off. We've seen a lot of new faces with new uniforms. Something that I'm always really excited about to see in training camps and in all sports, really. And one of the biggest things that happened actually right after our last show dropped was the breaking news of John Wall and Russell Westbrook being traded. So just to recap, Wall and Westbrook was traded both respectively from their teams, Houston to DC. And that was a 2023 protected lottery pick that Houston received from Washington. So Lo, as we jump into this, let's go. Who won this trade?
I don't know who won the trade. I never considered Russell Westbrook like an elite point guard who elevates his team to become a championship contender. He put up numbers when he was OKC, the 1 year before they traded for Paul George, when they made, they built a whole team around him, put a bunch of shooters, right, and average a triple double, for that season. He showed that he is a phenomenal talent, but at the end of the day, they didn't get out the first round of the playoffs. So with John Wall before he was injured, I mean, you can arguably, you can make an argument that he was probably a top 5 point guard in the league. I believe he's probably a little better defender, better passer than Russell Westbrook, but they both can't shoot. So I think this trade was more had to do with personalities clashing and just trying to get something, you're trying to get something for the player that you traded. Who won? I guess right now you have to say that the Washington Wizards won, only because we know that Russell Westbrook isn't injured. We already know what he can do on the court. With John Wall, we don't know. He's been injured for the last year and a half, 2 years. So is it going to be a better fit? Who knows? But I know Bradley Beal is excited. I know that he brought in a new energy in Washington, but this makes Washington an 8 seed, maybe 7 seed. But they're still not going to contend. So who won the trade? Well, I mean, if I have to be forced to say who won the trade, the Washington Wizards won it, only because you're getting a player who isn't coming off an injury, who has,
Sure.
we already saw a whole season of what he could do. But he doesn't make his teammates better. I know Paul George played better with him that 1 year at OKC before he got traded. So is Bradley Beal going to play a little better? Who knows? But you could probably make an argument that this is probably, one of the top 3 backcourts in the NBA. But I wasn't super excited. I think there's probably more upside to the Houston Rockets bringing in John Wall, just because I think, with him and Boogie Cousins there, if, James Harden decides to stay, we'll talk about that here in our future segment. I think John Wall comes in with a chip on his shoulder. He looked good on the videos that we see. Oh, everybody looks good in these Instagram videos, right? But for what we saw, he looked like he still has that it. You know what I'm saying? And I think he's a player who I think gets his players involved. He's a tough guy, hard-nosed dude. So you're essentially trading the two, the same type of point guards. You're just hoping that the personalities mesh well with the team chemistry. So those are my thoughts on who won the John Wall Russell Westbrook trade.
Yeah, and I would agree with you to some of the points you made. When it comes to who won the trade, I agree with you in essence of you are trading very similar players, right? John Wall's 30, Westbrook's 32. John Wall's coming off, two very difficult injuries to come back and be at a high level at. And Westbrook is Westbrook. His game hasn't changed in the last 5 years, right? I think when you trade player for player in that standpoint, I think it's a pretty balanced trade if you ask me. Yeah. I think when it comes to looking at the logistics of the trade, and what I mean by that is including that lottery pick, Houston wins it because they got the extra first round pick that, now if they are younger, if Harden does leave and they get more assets, we might have to look back at that 2023 pick that's included in this trade and in a couple of years say, wow, Washington gave that pick up and Houston is using it for maybe a pretty solid, first round player that they pick. And obviously this is the future. We can't predict that. But, with Harden and his unknown future, that one draft pick might play that big of a difference in this specific trade. Now, when we talk about players, to your point, both guys don't shoot the ball well, right? They probably are very similar players. And John Wall is probably the better defender. Westbrook's probably overall just a more explosive athlete, especially since Wall is coming off some injuries. So in regards to that, I think from a player standpoint, I think Washington wins the trade. I think they're going to compete in the East, maybe higher than an 8 seed. And the reason why I say that is because arguably with Klay Thompson hurt right now, they have to have some of the best backcourt players in the NBA with Beal and Westbrook. Those two guys from an all NBA standpoint are right up with Dame Lillard and CJ McCollum, in my opinion. So, in regards to that, those two guys can carry that team to at least 30 wins.
Yeah, but Bradley Beal put in work, and he almost got that team to the playoffs. Last year they just didn't get invited to the bubble, right. But they should have been got invited to the bubble, not just the Orlando Magic. And no, the Washington Wizards did go to the bubble.
Yeah, no, they were in the bubble.
Okay, my bad.
They didn't perform very well.
No, not at all. But I mean, there was a 9th, 10th seed. So yeah, Russell Westbrook probably gets him to the 6th spot, 6th, 7th, 8th spot. I just think that in the East anyway, you have the Clippers. I mean, you have the Nets, you have the Bucks, you have the Heat, you have Boston, you have Philly. Like they're not going to beat those teams, and so all right, you 5 through 8 is probably where you land. But at the end of the day,
and that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. That's okay for a Wizards team that, in my opinion, they're not rebuilding, but they're kind of re-identifying, who they want to build around, right? For the longest, and we've talked about this too, right? For the longest, it was, do you build around Wall or do you build around Beal? I've always thought that you build around Wall. You put a bunch of shooters around him. Bradley Beal, one of them. I was really hoping that they might have signed Gallinari just to kind of spread the floor out. Right. But they drafted the kid from Israel who so far from what I've read has had a pretty good camp. They expect him to give them really good quality minutes, so he'll be in their rotation. But again, going back with Beal and Westbrook, you've got your explosive guard, you've got Beal who can spread the floor for him to get him into the paint. I think those two together would be a better fit than John Wall, and if Harden decides to stay, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But overall, from a team standpoint, I think Washington with this trade is the better team, and Houston is kind of, if I'm Houston, if I'm Coach Silas, I'm kind of scratching my head and trying to figure out what the identity of this team is. Right? They lose Daryl Morey, who was really all in on the small ball. It's very possible that Harden is gone maybe this week or next week. So now you have two superstar guys, John Wall, Boogie Cousins, both of them coming off two of the same injuries, right? And we don't know what kind of players they're going to be. Do we think that they're going to get back, or do we hope that they're going to get back to their elite all-star play? Yeah, of course we do. I mean, I'm a basketball fan, and I wish those two guys very well. But realistically, are they a 30-win team right now? I mean, I don't know. You know,
In
I don't know.
Houston, yeah,
In
Houston. If James Harden stays, I mean, they stay. They stay. You know, probably the 7th, 8th seed. You know, just based on that talent alone. I mean, if John Wall can give you anything, gives you his 15 and whatever 5 and 7. You know, he is somebody who can kind of distribute the ball a little bit. But James Harden is not a guy that's easy to play with. He's very ball dominant. So yeah, this is going to be an interesting test for Silas as a head coach as to what their identity is going to be. Are they going to rebuild? Are they going to try to restructure that roster? Who knows? But the West is a very difficult place to win at anyway. And but I am kind of excited. I'm not the biggest Russell Westbrook fan, but I'd love to see him in the East because I think he's just going to dominate far more than he has in the West. You know what I'm saying? He's going to eat.
Yes.
I think he's going to take a lot of these personal, these matchups, one-on-one matchups very personally. So he's a show. Yeah, he is a show to watch. Whether or not he's a point guard that can help you win is a whole nother discussion. I say Washington win. You say Washington won the trade as well.
Yeah, I say Washington won the overall team trade. I say Houston wins the future of the trade, obviously with that first round draft pick. And you mentioned Coach Silas, and I want to bring this up real quick. And it'll lead us here to Harden, but what a show Coach Silas is entering, right? I mean, this guy has been a lot of respect for him. He's been an assistant coach in the NBA for the last 20 seasons, awaiting his chance to be a head coach, which is well-deserved. He could have been a head coach long before this, but he gets his chance with Houston, and then he gets a James Harden, who, in my opinion, is being a little bit of a prima donna here, and has officially requested to be out of Houston. So, just some background here. James Harden missed the first couple of days of training camp. There's been some videos of him with a rapper in Vegas, not wearing a mask and partying and giving him some money. It's been a big deal, right? A lot of these guys are talking about it. And then he shows up in camp, I believe it was yesterday, or shows up in the facilities. And it's finally James Harden time in Houston. And he says, you know what? I'm actually open to Philly. So I've got to ask you here, where does he land? I mean, does he stay in Houston? Does he go to Philly? We talked to ourselves about Brooklyn. I mean, what's your thoughts on this?
Man, who is Philly going to give up for him? I wouldn't trade Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid for him.
So I wouldn't give up my team for him.
No, not at all. Like Stephen A was just saying today, actually, on First Take, that if he had to trade reluctantly, he would trade Ben Simmons. And that, for me, I'm like, listen, James Harden's 32 years old. He, the closest sniff they had to the finals was the year that CP3 was there, and unfortunately got hurt Game 7 and Golden State won. But his style of play, he's very ball dominant, dribbles, too much and doesn't get the team involved. Now he did average the league in assists the first year that Mike D'Antoni put him as a point guard. But if you're making that trade, you're trying to win now. And James Harden isn't going, and so far hasn't been proven to, he hasn't elevated his play during the playoffs. He's great during the regular season. When clutch moment comes, he's not this great superstar that we all anticipate when we see, during the regular season. Where does he land? At the end of the day, there's no pressure on Houston. He still has 2 years left on his contract. If they don't feel like they're going to get an investment, return an investment for James Harden, then he's going to have to suck it up, and they're going to have to trade him to a team that's going to bring back the assets. The problem is the leverage that James Harden's had. His trade value get diminished now because now he says, well, I want to go to Philly. Okay, well, then if I know you're going to go to Philly, then I'm not going to, give you all of my assets to try to bring you into a team that you may not want to play for. And who's to say that you're not going to have the same attitude? Because James Harden at the end of the day has to realize he asked for CP3. It didn't work out. He wanted him gone. Then he wanted Russell Westbrook to come in. Brings Russell Westbrook, and Houston is accommodating this brother, right? They're just trading assets upon assets to bring these guys in. They have improved, and so you have to look at yourself and you're saying, okay, is it everybody else or is it me? And James Harden has not proven that it's him at the end of the day. Like yes, you put up great, phenomenal numbers. You are an offensive, probably one of the top 5 offensive players that I've seen play in the game of, play the game of basketball, but it hasn't translated to wins. And at the end of the day, yeah, you're acting like a prima donna. You don't know the direction in which, the Houston Rockets are going, but a lot of that has to do with the style of play that you implement on the court that most people can't really gravitize around. So we kind of wait around. Hopefully I get the ball. Hopefully I get to shoot, let's shoot 53s. Let's try to outscore everybody. So where does James Harden land? At this point, I know he requested a trade to Philly. The former GM for the Rockets is now the GM there in Philly, and he knows Harden better than anybody. Is he willing to trade? They don't have any assets unless you're trading Ben Simmons. And at that point, Jono, if you trade Ben Simmons for Ben Simmons for James Harden, then you have John Wall and Ben Simmons on the court. That makes
the same position.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, James Harden needs to stay there, figure it out. I think Silas is in a great position. Here's why I say Silas is in a great position. There's no expectation. So if he can have these guys playing at a level that most people didn't expect, that's a bonus for him. If they struggle, well, it's because of the disgruntled, James Harden, So I don't think he's in this position where, he's playing a bad hand. I think he can try to make less is more. Boogie, and if you can get something out of Boogie and John Wall comes in and plays, at the most improved player of the year type level, that's going to look good on him. Where does James Harden land at the end of the day? He has to stay in Houston. He has no leverage. He still has 2 years left on his contract, and he's getting paid $30 million. So I mean, teams are not going to blow up their team to bring a guy knowing that he only wants to go to Philly or a contender.
Right.
Whatever that
is. And I would agree with you. And I really like the points that you made. You mentioned his leverage, right? I mean, the man declined a $50 million salary so he can potentially, opt into free agency or, just open up a little bit more leverage for himself to be traded. But, you brought a good point about him messing up his trade value, right? Not showing up to camp, hanging out, posting stuff on social media. Like, look, if you want to be traded, that's one thing, right? But you still got to be a professional and acting accordingly as well, right? You can't, it's like me calling out sick and not, not putting in the PTO or something like that. You know what I mean?
Today. We saw you at Disney World. Oh, well,
exactly.
To go to Disney World, that's not good enough to show up to work.
But I want to say I'm disappointed in the way James Harden is going about this potential trade, and just kind of about everything that's gone down. And then you made a good point too, man. Look, he's the common denominator, right? Mm-hmm. Chris Paul didn't work out. I thought the Harden Chris Paul era was the best Houston was ever going to get with Harden. Mm-hmm. That's when they committed to the small ball. Chris Paul was the leader. He was the show, and Harden got the buckets, and that was good. It worked out. We talked about this years ago when it happened. Is like, how is this going to work out? Yeah. Right. Two point guards, 2 ball dominated guys, but it did. It worked out. Unfortunately, he got injured. Things happened. Their window, closed, and it's basketball. That's what happens, right? Then you bring in Westbrook, his boy, his buddy, his OKC running mate. You thinking, at least I'm thinking, things are going to get better, but it doesn't. Russ wasn't the problem in OKC. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or I'm sorry, in Houston.
And you knew what you was going to get out was Westbrook and Mike D'Antoni.
You knew it. You knew it.
System. Hey, just play downhill, and in those moments. But it's like, okay, so and then of course we talked. We didn't mention this, but he made mention about wanting to go to Brooklyn and play the Nets. Bro, that would be horrible. Like in regards to fit. You have Kyrie Irving, who isn't a natural point guard in regards to he's an assist guy, can get his teammates involved. He's a ball dominant guy. Kevin Durant can play however you want him to play. If he, spot up and shoot, sure. He can pick his spots. He's going to get 25, in his sleep regardless. He doesn't need to dominate the ball in order to be effective. But then James Harden, you know, you got to prove, bro, that at the end of the day that you are worth your showbox. You're a player that people love to watch. You're a talent, but it doesn't translate, you know, to championships or to contention. Not when the moments mattered. And so, at the end of the day, James Harden got to look at himself as like, people was coming to Houston because of you. Like, Houston gave you the keys to the city. You are a rock star. You allowed this new era of basketball to formulate in Houston. You created a culture, and now the culture is not, you know, that didn't translate to wins. You can't say it's everybody else and not you. You know, so.
Right. And you mentioned something too, man, that I thought was a good point, you know, about his playoff ability. I mean, has he ever showed up in the playoff? No, in my opinion, no. He's been the same kind of James Harden in the regular season that you see in the playoffs, and guys who are successful, you know, LeBron, the LeBrons, the Currys, and you know, I want to say Giannis, but that's just not the case yet. But, you know, the guys like Kawhi, Leonard, they elevate their game in the playoffs, and it shows, right? Harden hasn't done that. And, you know, like I said, you know, we talked about Brooklyn and Harden and how we potentially that could be a fit. But if I'm Brooklyn, if I'm the GM, if I'm the president, if I'm the coach, right? If I'm Steve Nash, I'm going up to the general manager right now, and I'm telling him, please do not trade for James Harden. Let me coach this team. Let me coach Kyrie. Let me coach KD. Let me coach a cherished LeVert. Let me coach the big guy in the middle that wears the fro. I forgot his name. Jared Allen. But let me coach these guys. And the reason why I say that is because if you trade everything all over again like you did to Boston or did with Boston, you're not getting anything back. You're getting a James Harden who is disgruntled. He's frustrated. He wants to play. Just probably wants to just play with his boys. To me right now, Brooklyn is a better team than Houston. Better team than Philly. They're a top 3 team in the East. Probably the top 5 team in the league. Yeah. Just based off talent. Yes, absolutely. And then the young guys too. Like you don't want to do that. You don't want to trade the young guys for a guy that you know is just wanting to get out of a situation, right? He doesn't even really want to be in Brooklyn. He just wants to be out of Houston. Right. You know, so I think he stays in Houston. I mean, there's really no great deal that comes to mind that has been talked about that is centered around James Harden. And you know, my mom always says this, right? You make your bed, you lay in it, and he's doing just that.
Hey, give yourself a half a year. You know, play with John Wall. You guys played pickup ball together, and I think that's where the chemistry came from. Was, you know, John. You know, they either played with each other or played against each other, whatever. So give it a half a year. If it doesn't work out, then you can reassess. Right. But at this point, bro, you can't just I want out, bro. A lot of this stuff stems from you and your inability to elevate your teammates. And you haven't showed up in the playoffs, and everybody who's come in to help you have run them out. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't touch them. Figure it out in Houston. Houston got the leverage. But I do want to bring up one of the things, man. I know that outside of these trade rumors and also the trades that we have seen, you know, your boy Paul George been talking out his mouth, man.
Twitter fingers.
Oh my goodness, bro! Like, we're gonna get on it, but I know that we talked about this in the offseason, that the Lakers had the best offseason for any of the NBA teams this year, and so Paul George has stated he wants to stay a Clipper. Kawhi Leonard, I mean, you gave up everything to bring this brother in hopes of winning you a championship. It didn't work out. Then your boy Paul George keeps talking about, you know, they played him down and they try to make me a shooter like, you know, Klay Thompson and all this and all that. I love Doc Rivers' clapback when he was like, you know, Tyrone Lue was the assistant coach there too. So, you know, it's not all on me, bro. And at the end of the day, bro, no, you can't put that on the coaches. At the end of the day, you said that you was mentally depressed in the bubble. You're the one who's hitting, the ball at the side of the side of the basket. You know what I'm saying? Like, you did not show up, and you was up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets, and you did not close out that series. That's on you. That's on the team, not inability to play to the talent that they had. So the question is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George what the Clippers need to make the jump, to win a championship, to compete against the Lakers? Because at the end of the day, that's the crosstown rival. And are those two enough to make the jump, win a championship, beat the Lakers, and bring home a title to Clipper Nation?
No, not at all. And I'll here's why. Kawhi Leonard is, but Paul George isn't. And here's why I say that. I'm a big Paul George fan, but you cannot in today's NBA, you can't have both a Kawhi Leonard and a Paul George playing the same position and expecting a different outcome. What I mean by that is, to Paul George's comments about making him a jump shooter, what else are you supposed to do when Kawhi Leonard is playing the 3 position and has the ball on the elbow or on the block and is expected to go to work? I mean, at that point, you have to be a spot up shooter or coming off some kind of screen or a pin down or something to get open. Right. He's not a point guard. I mean, obviously he's got good handles. He can get to the rack, but he's not a point guard. So what do you play him at? As a shooting guard? Is he going to come off the bench and take Kawhi Leonard out and be a 6 man at this point in his career? No, of course not.
You're talking reckless. So
you know what I'm saying?
You got 2 of the top 6 best wing players, 3-and-D guys. If anything, Paul George is a good defender when he wants to play it. But he allows his offense to dictate his defense, when in reality, that whole team should have structured and focused their defense and let the defense create their offense, right?
Agreed. I agree.
A lot of the talented guys were known for defense. Let your defense dictate your offense, but because they can score buckets too. At the end of the day, they allow their offense to dictate how they was going to play on defense. At the end of the day, man, like, you got 2 wing players, because in this league, you need wings. You just need wings. And a point guard. They didn't have a natural point guard who could set up an offensive team. This is why I was very surprised that they didn't make a harder pitch for like a Rajon Rondo or a natural point guard to play that position. But is there enough? If they can focus and say, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George sits down together and say, okay, we're going to wreak havoc on the defensive end every single night, and we're going to set the tone on defense and let everybody else buy into what we're doing, they have enough to compete. Because at the end of the day, that's what's going to determine. And that's why I like Tyronn Lue a little bit over Doc Rivers, why Chauncey Billups is a big pickup, because those are hard-nosed defensive guys, no-nonsense guys. They're not going to cater to these brothers. At the end of the day, you got to put in work. So you can't expect Kawhi Leonard to be a vocal leader. That's not him. And he's going to do what he's going to do, clock in, clock out. That's the MO of Kawhi Leonard. Paul George, he's talking too much. We've seen him play at an elite level, especially when he was with the Pacers and against that Miami series where we saw legit. At that point in that series, you thought Paul George can't go wrong, man. I agree. They didn't. And he kind of been up and down. Then he went to OKC, play phenomenal basketball with Russell Westbrook. Then I don't know what happened. Maybe the bubble did mess him up. I don't know. But the question is, Paul George can't take all the blame, right? I mean, I'm not blaming him. I think when you build your quote unquote your super team, it has to be guys in different positions. That's my only discretion. You've got 2 of the best players in the league at the same position on the same team. At some point, somebody has to play off their position and do things that maybe they're not comfortable doing, whether it is spot up shooting or, like I said, coming off screens. But we've got to put some blame on Kawhi Leonard, right? I mean, in Game 7, he shot 6 for 14, and he wasn't as aggressive as he has been in past playoff series. And what it would take is
we look at the teams that Kawhi's been on, right? The Raptors and San Antonio. Those teams had a system around Kawhi, right? And we talked about Ty Lue, and that's the reason why I'm not sold on Ty Lue just yet. Because unless he has a system built around Kawhi Leonard, where Kawhi is the guy in the fourth quarter, and he gets his daily or his routine subs, whenever that may come, I'm just curious to see what the offense looks like with guys like this. And you've got Serge Ibaka coming in. You lost
which we did not address on our last podcast, which I totally forgot the Clippers picked up.
Yep.
I know they lost,
which is a good pickup.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. I think he fits better with that team than Hazel does, though he's a better offensive, player off the bench. Ibaka can hit the three. He's a stretch four. He can play a little solid defense. I think he was a good, pickup for the Clippers. We totally did not.
I agree.
So
I agree. I do think though that I think for the Clippers to make the jump, to your point, I think Rondo was someone that they should have put a little bit more emphasis on. They did get another shooter, Luke Kennard. Shout out to Duke. They got him to space the floor. Yeah, he was in the trade with Landry Shamet. They traded a first round pick as well and got Luke Kennard. I think he's going to benefit off of some mismatches and just more space on the floor. I'm pretty sure he has to start. I mean, he's their only two guy that can really stretch the floor the way any other two can. And obviously Lou Will is not going to start, just keep coming off the bench. But
I think Luke will have to start. Then what? So who's your starting five?
I don't know who their point guard is, but their starting five definitely. I don't know who their center was like. Or their center is Zubac, right? So I don't know.
Reggie Jackson.
I don't know who the point guard. Yeah,
Reggie Jackson re-signed, so it's going to be Reggie Jackson, Paul George, Kawhi,
Luke Kennard, and then I don't think Ibaka starts. I don't. I think he comes off the bench because you got to think about it. You got to start Kawhi and Paul George, right? Somebody's got to start at the 4 or the 2.
I think your boy Leonard comes off the bench with Lou Williams. In order for it to have a balanced 5, you may have a fourth quarter lineup with him in it, and those 3 guys out there, with Ibaka probably playing center and Lou Williams at the point or something. I don't know, but yeah, I don't see Ibaka coming off the bench. They need a 4 because they don't have a natural one. But I like at the end of the day, if you're building any team, Jono, and you say, hey, we're going to give you Paul George and Kawhi Leonard as the centerpieces to compete for a championship, you can't go wrong with that. It's just at this point, you got to maximize the potential of these players. And I think they'll come back a little hungry. I think the excuses now are gone. And I think they're trying to, Doc Rivers, he didn't do his best coaching job. He's always been known as someone who can at least when he was here in Orlando, maximize the potential. Boston, he took these egos and made them mesh, but they were already towards the end of their career. I don't think he ever had a team where they were in their prime, right? And two guys who are in their prime and meshing all of that together. So, he's a player's coach for sure.
So what's your prediction for the 2020-2021 Clippers?
I think they make the Western Conference Finals. I think less is more in this sense. They really need to address that point guard position. We'll see what happens. But do they make the jump? The Lakers just did so much in this offseason that, you can't count as much as we want to count out LeBron James. We can't count him out. And that talent, but do they make the jump? We'll see if they can solidify a good point guard, someone who can distribute the ball and, allow Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to be the focal on the offense and not this your turn, my shot, your shot, but really create an offense that both of those guys are in rhythm and flowing. Because when Paul George is on, bro, Clippers can't be stopped. I'm sorry. When Paul George is hitting, that team can't be stopped. So are they? I think those are the 2 pieces you would need in order for you to want to at least have a conversation about competing. Yeah. You got the 2 best wings. I know we talk about playoff P, but yeah, I think so. But In order for them to make a jump, they need a point guard. That's just my opinion. That's my opinion.
No, I get you, man. I get you. And the best part about today is what we're about to get into right now. We've had very much debates about LeBron and his greatness and what he has done in his career. And in the latest road trip podcast, LeBron mentioned that he's been a part of two of the toughest NBA championships in NBA history. The 2016 run against the best NBA team ever in the regular season, the Golden State Warriors, 73-9. And then the 2020 championship, the NBA bubble, the restart, the whole new game. So we're going to talk about this here, and I'm excited about this. This is going to get very, very spirited, but I'm going to go first, and I'm going to say this. One, this is LeBron's opinion, right? LeBron has every right to say whether he feels that his championship titles were tough or not. And it's for people like you and I to agree and disagree and have a platform like this to discuss this. So what I'm going to say is this. LeBron is absolutely right. He has been involved in two of the toughest championships in NBA history. And I'm not talking about the way it happened, right? I'm talking about the teams he played, the journey it took to get there, right? And let's start with 2016. The Cavs weren't even the number one team in the East that year, right? So were they favored to go to the finals? When you're not number one, you're never truly favored, but he took down the East again. And that was probably his, was it since 2011, 2016? That was his fifth straight NBA finals appearance himself. So he took the Cavs there. It was Kyrie's second one. He got hurt the year before. Kevin Love's first one because he was hurt the year before. His team played a proven champion, the team that beat them the previous year, the Golden State Warriors. They won 73 games. They were up 3-1. 3-1. The only team ever in NBA history to come back from 3-1 and win the NBA championship. And let me remind you, Lo, at Golden State, Game 7, the away team won. Game 7, the Cleveland Cavs won away at Golden State. That, to me, is probably tougher than the 2020 NBA championship. So let's start there at 2016.
In the words of Baby, are you finished or are you done? Are you finished or are you done, bro?
But I'm good for
that. Man, listen. As soon as I saw this video clip on Instagram, I shot it to the group. And yes, I do agree. It's an opinion. But here's the deeper picture. Here's the deeper story that I want everyone watching and listening to understand. LeBron James is a master in controlling the narrative. No one has ever talked about the toughest championship that's ever needed to be won. Never. That's never been in discussion that I remember, right? Nobody's, what was the toughest championship in NBA history? He mentions it. And he mentions that the two toughest are the ones that he won. Why would he do that? Because he's trying to chase someone. Who is he chasing? Oh, the one who has 6. The GOAT, Michael Jordan. Because if you can diminish, right, the importance of 6 championship, going 6-0, and have people focus on the two toughest championships, then it negates the fact that you won 6 because you won the two toughest ones in NBA history. No one that I know, if you thought to yourself, what was the toughest championship that's ever been won, you would have came up with those two championships. Now, let's break down the 3-1. Just because something was done in the first time in history doesn't mean it was the most difficult. You can be like, that makes no sense. Follow my logic. There's a lot of things that factored into that 3-1 lead. The fact that they were down 3-1, right, is reason. Bogut, hurt. Iggy, hurt. A stimulus package given to LeBron James for Draymond Green to get suspended in Game 6. No one thought that Cleveland team was going to be Golden State. And I truly believe that if Draymond Green did not get suspended, the Cleveland Cavaliers would not have beaten the Golden State Warriors. And even in Game 7, if it wasn't for Kyrie Irving hitting that, I mean, of course, we know LeBron hit that, you know what I'm saying? He made a big defensive play. but Kyrie Irving hit the biggest shot in his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
None of this would have happened. But at the end of the day, listen, at the end of the day, they won the championship, right? But let's talk about the bubble. Everybody experienced that bubble, LeBron. It wasn't just you, right? So if anybody else would have won the championship, they wouldn't have said this is the toughest championship. So again, it goes back to, it's an opinion. It's subjective. But why would LeBron say that? I always look at the why, Jono. Why would he want to say that? He said the same thing before. Oh, well, because I beat a Golden State Warriors up 3-1, I'm the GOAT. Well, did he embellish? No, he's trying to change a narrative. He wants people to understand that he's trying to chase something. And we always talk about LeBron James and Michael Jordan, but why isn't it being talked about LeBron James and Kobe Bryant? Like, that needs to be the conversation that needs to be had. We'll have that conversation in a later episode. But LeBron is notorious for changing or controlling the narrative. Nobody's thinking about the toughest championship in NBA history. LeBron James said it. I didn't watch the interview, so if there is context, I don't know it. But that little snippet that we saw on Instagram, LeBron James is popping off at the mouth, bro. And nobody's going to give credit. We talked about this. Dirk Nowitzki and that Mavs team who beat LeBron James, down 0-2, and they came back and win that championship. No one thought that.
I've got to correct you. They were 1-1. Miami won game 1. Dallas won game 2. So they were 1-1.
Okay, but they were never down in that series. Didn't they come back and win?
I mean, they were probably down 2-1.
Okay. Regardless, with that championship, that whole championship was a tough championship for Dirk Nowitzki to win.
Sure.
No one,
listen, any championship is tough. Any championship is tough. Like the 2004 Pistons, they beat a dynasty Lakers team, right? The Raptors, they beat Golden State. Any championship is tough. But what you have to factor in is what happened in these championships. Listen, the bubble is, if let's say Boston would have won the championship in the bubble, toughest championship ever. If Jason Tatum said it, I would agree. If Jaylen Brown said it, I would agree. I would tell anybody who won the championship in the
I wasn't there. I wasn't there. I wasn't there, so I don't know the experience. So obviously it's a different experience. But LeBron James, he was like, you guys don't understand, not sleeping in the comfort of my bed. Did you see where that brother was staying? That brother was staying in some, you know what I'm saying? Like, that brother was not suffering as much as people. Yes, I understand.
I mean, but it's hard, man. I mean,
it's a different, but everybody was going through that. Like, everybody was going through it. So if you want to say,
why is it a big deal if LeBron says it?
Because LeBron loves to control the narrative. He is trying to get people to buy into the idea that he is the greatest player that has ever played. And if that's your opinion, for those LeBron enthusiasts, if that's your thoughts, that's fine. We can have that debate. And there's enough debate shows on planet Earth that talk to has maximized this conversation. Has talked this thing to the cows come home. The point is, there was no reason for LeBron to say that. And for him to say it, because every other player is going to come out and say, well, this was the toughest championship, and here's the reason why. So you look at the bubble, okay, that's a different experience. Down 3-1, it's never been happened before, so that has to be difficult. But we have to factor in everything into that story. Yes, 3-1, but it's, I don't know the stats right now. It's not in front of me, but I'm sure teams have been down 2-0 and they came back and won, or, whatever the case may be.
Guys are always down, and look, guys are always down in series, and 2-0, what it is the percentage, right? So back in 2016, when Golden State held a 3-1 lead, at that time, 100% of the teams that held a 3-1 lead in the NBA Finals won. Right. Mm-hmm. And at that point, 3-1, nobody gave Cleveland a chance. Nobody did. I did. I'm like, oh, this series is over.
And then what happened?
They'll maybe win one more. And then what happened was they won 3 straight games.
But what factored into those 3 wins?
I mean,
that's the point. So he caught breaks. He did something that has not been done in NBA history, right? But again, it goes back to the point that I'm making. Just because it's never been done doesn't mean that it's the most difficult, because there's other factors that go into that game. Let's compare it to football, for example. You're a Giants fan. I'm a Pats fan, right? The Patriots were 16-0 going into the Super Bowl. Perfect season. Went in. there was factors that played into that Super Bowl.
It was the hardest Super Bowl for the Giants to win. Absolutely.
And now, if that happened again, do you think that they would win and beat the Patriots if they play 3 more times?
On an undefeated season? Probably not.
They wouldn't. No, the Tyreek catch, the fact that Bill Belichick, there's other little factors.
That's what makes sports so beautiful, right or wrong.
I get it.
Look, you could be on the good side, you could be on the bad side. If you're a Golden State fan in 2016, you hate LeBron because he beat your team. If you're a Cleveland fan, you're excited. You're excited. But you want to look at the factors that played into the title and then look at the factors that made it the toughest, right? Cleveland, from that point, had not won a championship in 50 plus years, right? Mm-hmm. LeBron had promised to bring a title back to Cleveland. That was his own doing. He wrote his own story. He said, I'm coming back to Cleveland to win a title for you guys. So he checked off the box 50 plus years. He checked off the box of granting a promise to the city of Cleveland. And on top of that, he beat the best team in NBA history with 73 wins. A proven champion, already won a championship before, a 2-time MVP. So you want to talk about factors that came into play, but these are the factors that LeBron did to beat these teams.
You can say this is probably the greatest story ever written and accomplished. But to say that a championship was the toughest championship in NBA history is a subjective, because every player will look at that comment and the championships that they won and break down reasons why their championship was the toughest. MJ will say that. Tim will say that. So but my question is, why did LeBron make those comments? Because if he can say that these, out of all the championships in NBA histories, the 2 that I won, right, were the most difficult, then that makes me the greatest. That makes me the GOAT. That makes me. That's what people don't want to believe. I don't know him, but I wish I could have a conversation with LeBron James. I really do. I wish I was in his inner circle because I'll ask him these questions. He's a phenomenal talent, the greatest player that we've seen in this generation, right? In the last 20 years, right? But he is trying to achieve the status of the greatest of all time, and he knows.
And to your point, it's Michael Jordan.
Yes, of course.
Right. Let me ask you a quick question, because I know where you're getting at with this, right? Very, very quickly. Let's look at the 6 titles Jordan won. 91 against the Lakers, 92 against the Blazers, 93 against the Suns, right? 96 against the Sonics, and 97-98 against the Jazz. At any moment in those titles, did Jordan play a team that won more than 72 games?
No.
Right? At any moment, did Jordan play a individual that won 2 unanimous MVPs?
No,
he did play against some MVPs. You're right. He did. And I'm not knocking that. Now, what I want to do, again, very quickly is he played it, and I'm not knocking Jordan with the 6 titles, but I want to put it into perspective. He played an aging Lakers team, right? With Magic and Kareem. He played a Blazers team that they were just lucky to be there. Like, they were just happy to be there. You know this. He even said it in The Last Dance. Clyde said it in The Last Dance too. He played a Suns team that Barkley carried on his back, that he's probably still hurting to this day. And he was the league's MVP, right? But we know Jordan should have got it. We know that. We know that. And then in 96, they should have swept a Sonics team, but Jordan had so much stuff on his mind. He said it in The Last Dance that mentally he wasn't there.
What happened?
His dad passed away.
Oh, so Jono. So couldn't Michael Jordan just make the argument that the toughest championship, knowing that you experienced, your father's death, you're going through all of these different situations, accusations about, gambling and all of these things, right? Entering to that championship season, you're telling me that that Michael Jordan couldn't make an argument about that's the reason why that was a
okay.
championship?
That was a personal mindset for Jordan. My point with that is LeBron stated that he won the two toughest NBA championships in NBA history, right? Jordan won't say that. Jordan would probably say that. For me personally, that was the toughest championship to win. I had so much on my plate. Mentally, I wasn't there. My father just passed away.
I'm going to tone in. You said Michael Jordan will never say that. Why would Michael Jordan never have to say that?
Well, look, Michael Jordan won six.
Why would Michael Jordan wouldn't have to say that? Answer the question.
That I don't know. Michael Jordan's not as spoken, probably. I don't know.
LeBron reeks this very tough, like he has sensitive skin, like he's soft skinned. He gets people. Again, when he won the championship, got my respect. I want my dang respect,
and he deserves that.
Who disrespects you? The media loves you. Unless you premise your whole career against what Skip Bayless says, right?
No.
Everybody adore. Are you thinking about somebody like me who roots against you more than he roots for you, right? Like, are you thinking about me? Who's disrespecting you, LeBron?
There's a lot of people. LeBron? No, there's a lot of people.
Who are these people?
And I'm going to quote this as LeBron haters. There are a lot of LeBron haters who rather him lose these NBA finals than win them. And look, he has been to more, and he's lost more than he's won. But he's been to more NBA finals than Jordan, than Pippen, than anybody that you can think of in NBA history at this moment, other than Bill Russell but we're not giving it We're not giving an award on second place based off of NBA wins. We're talking about the 2 titles that he won, right? And we're talking about the media creating this narrative since LeBron was 16. The media said, LeBron, you are the chosen one. The media said, LeBron, you are the king. Now go perform. And since then, he has.
That's not the argument. That's not the argument. The argument
is not the argument.
He exceeded. He not only met but exceeded the expectations that even the media had of LeBron James. That's not in question. The question
why can't he ask for his respect?
No one is disrespecting him, John. Or what media outlet is Nike disrespecting him? Is the NBA disrespecting him? Is because he gets all the national TVs games, right?
Well, like he makes the money.
My point exactly. He's not. If he's worrying about someone like myself, right, who's a Michael Jordan enthusiast, right, but appreciate
you're a LeBron hater.
No, I am a Michael. No, when it comes to the debate of LeBron James and Michael Jordan, I am unapologetic that it's going to be MJ 10 out of 10 times. Do I appreciate what LeBron James has done for the game of basketball? Absolutely. But he's easier for someone to root against than to root for. That's just for me, right? Because he has cheap. You've seen somebody on the mountaintop for so long, you just want somebody else at that mountaintop. This is why we love the narrative of Kawhi Leonard. Could he be the king of LA? This is why the world at large rooted for the little tiny light-skinned dude, from Davidson, beating the giant that is LeBron James. Like, people love to see that, but yet he continues to be at the top mountaintop. So it's a better narrative. But this idea that people are disrespecting you when it comes to the debate of the greatest of all time, you are wanting to be amongst the greats. You can put him in the Mount Rushmore, the top 5 players that ever play the game, right? But at the end of the day, no one is disrespecting you, LeBron. And at the end of the day, no one is going out saying this was the toughest championship that ever been played. He does this because I truly believe he is soft skinned. He has an ego about him. He's a very personable guy, very charismatic, very knowledgeable, all of those things. I'm not taking that away. But there's this insecurity that leaks out from time to time. Kevin Durant does that. Kyrie does that. LeBron James does that. You're the biggest, strongest, most, probably the smartest basketball in the NBA. Why are you complaining about certain things that don't go your way? Especially on the basketball court, flopping and all these things. These are the little things that, like, if you're dominant, be dominant. But it's like he's dominant with this little, with the kid personality that it's like it just sometimes rubs the wrong way. And then he try to act tougher than what he is. And it's like, bro, you're not that tough. You know what I mean? So this is why people go at LeBron. And at the end of the day, LeBron wins more often than he loses in that regard. But no one is making these comments. He is. And there's a reason why he's making them, because he needs people to understand that if I can't get to 6, understand that these 2 makes me the greatest champion. Well, if that's the case, then we saw that you were also collapsed during their first finals as well. So it's just those who are watching and listening, I really would like to hear your thoughts about this, because I always think of the why. Why did you say that? Why do you feel like you have to say that? Because at the end of the day, who you're chasing is Michael Jordan. You need to worry about surpassing Kobe before you start talking about Michael Jordan. That's just my thoughts. Go ahead, Jono.
As we close today's episode, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put a poll on Instagram. And it's gonna be. I really want to know. Are you, and not you specifically, but my followers and your followers as well. I want to know. Are you a LeBron hater or are you a LeBron lover? And I'll put those results here on the next episode. We'll start it off on there. Because I really want to, look, and you mentioned this, right? When you have someone sitting at the top for so long, people get tired of it. Mm-hmm. I have not been tired of watching LeBron James play basketball. It took me a long time to appreciate and respect the kind of player he is. And it was the same way for Kobe. I was never a Kobe fan, but I respected his greatness because he won at such a high level. He could have won 3 titles with the Lakers, and that was it. And to me, he was right up there with Jordan. He was 1A, 1B. And then LeBron comes in, right? And in regards of the debate talk, because you always have to have somebody who's the best. And obviously Jordan is the best. When it comes time for LeBron to hang it up, he's going to be up there, whether he wins 6 titles or not.
Right, and I don't disagree with that. So my same thing with me, Kobe Bryant. I think I had a much more appreciation when he became number 8, right? When he cut off his hair and he became the Mamba that we know. I think everybody kind of loved that personality. I was a LeBron's fan until he went to Miami. Once he went to Miami, I was kind of like, and then I kind of rooted for him when he went back to Cleveland, right after this stint in Miami. But then as a Bulls fan, it's like, you were supposed to come to Chicago and you didn't, and then you keep.
I think you're still hurt about that.
I'm not going to dismiss that. I am a little hurt, and especially
you should have got Melo. You should have taken Melo.
Melo didn't want to come because of the money, but anyway, that's a whole nother conversation for another day. What could have been didn't happen, but there's a reason. The greats never made these comments. Kobe Bryant didn't waste his time making these comments. Shaq never made these comments. Michael Jordan, who's the greatest? He's like, bro, I can't compare myself to people in different eras and blah, blah, blah. The most cockiest, arrogant, basketball player that we've probably seen, right? It was humble enough to say, yo, I'm not into that debate topic, right? He makes fun of whatever, but LeBron feels like he needs to always be validated as the greatest, and that's why he makes these comments. Why? I don't understand. Like, you are the you are the league right at this point, right? And so you keep setting new standards that people haven't achieved, and kudos to you. But my thoughts on LeBron's 2 toughest championship in NBA history, that's subjective, because everybody who's won a championship is going to mention why theirs was the toughest. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you're the greatest basketball player, bro, in the league right now. Those type of comments stems from some sort of insecurity that I don't know why LeBron James has. It just comes off that way. Like, I'm
gonna shoot LeBron a message on. I'm gonna add him real quick on Twitter and say, LeBron, I know you're busy with training camp, but
no, we love you, man. We love debating this stuff. You know what I'm saying? And we need a little clown, bro. But if I can get some recognition, get some viewers, so get my buddy up, that'd be great. But we're doing this because at the end of the day, this is our everyday conversations. But we appreciate your greatness. It's just my thoughts and my opinions, man. But yeah, I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying?
Looking forward to I'm looking forward to that survey I'm going to put, and
for sure.
I'll even throw it on Facebook. I'll make sure I get every single person involved.
Please comment your thoughts on it. Flesh it out a little bit. Just not, are you a LeBron hater or LeBron lover? Just flesh it out a little bit so that way people can really, share their thoughts. And we are going to share your thoughts. We're going to shout you out on our next episode. So
I'm going to share the best. I'm going to share the best comment on that one. So
for sure,
whoever gives me the best comment, I'm going to make sure I share them, and I'll probably even ask them to get on here. So,
all right,
Lo, I appreciate you, man. Man, published author. Bulls enthusiast.
I don't have my book. I don't have my book. Hey, but check out my website. My pre-orders for my book is Lo-Ammi You can get my book pre-ordered for $12. Jono, order your copy. Stop playing. I gotta shout you out.
Christmas is around the corner.
Yes, it is. But yeah, man, appreciate the shout out, bro. Hopefully you guys were blessed. You know what I'm saying? Enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Till next time.
Peace.
Peace.